There's a million distortion pedals out there, so I've tried to make it a bit easier for you by compiling this video of 6 of my favourite high gain pedals. Links to all the pedals are in the description as well as chapters, so you can move around the video freely and either just check out and compare the pedals that you're interested in, or sit back and enjoy all 6 pedals. This is the brand new Soldano Super Lead Overdrive pedal. When Mike Soldano released his SLO 100 back in 1987, it's safe to say he revolutionised the sound of electric guitar and set a new standard in modern high-gain amplification. Famous users of the SLO include Mick Mars, Gary Moore, Eddie Van Halen and Warren DeMartini, but it even appealed to lower gain or more blues players like Eric Clapton and Mark Knopfler. The SLO is a holy grail of guitar tone, and in a live situation has been unattainable for most people. An SLO 100 head is currently around £4,000 and the smaller, lower wattage SLO 30 around £3,000. But now you can get that sound on a pedal-sized budget. Boutique Amp Distribution, who build the pedal, acknowledge that capturing the SLO's nuanced character and balance of gain, sustain and touch response has been difficult, but they feel they finally achieved it and are ready to bring it to our pedal boards. The SLO pedal's front panel has the same controls as the real amp: gain, volume, presence and 3-band EQ. SLO users would often send their amps back to Mike for him to perform his famous depth mod. Eventually this mod became a standard feature on the SLO 100. So to stay true to the full amp, the pedal has a side-mounted deep switch which increases low-end punch. Soldano say that the controls take you from a harmonically rich crunch to some of the most famous high-gain sounds in history, whether you're after modern metal, classic 80s rock or some 80s era Clapton tones. The SLO pedal is where you'll find them. Visually and aesthetically, the pedal stays true to the Soldano branding. It looks very modern and tasteful. It weighs about £1 and is only able to be powered by a 9-volt DC power adapter, a standard pedal power supply. It has no battery compartment. It comes with a limited 5-year warranty and feels very well built. Here are a few sound samples of this pedal using a variety of guitars and pickups. All the sounds you'll hear will be the pedal into the clean channel of my amp into a V30 loaded 212 cabinet and an SM57 microphone. Everything on the clean channel is set to halfway, everything is set to 12 o'clock. Same on the pedal, except the treble is on 6. So we've got Fender Player Strat on the single coils. Bridge humbucker. This is a Gibson Les Paul Standard with burst buckers. This is a Gibson Les Paul Standard with some EMGs. It's the headset. And this is a PRS Custom 22 with a Tremonti pickup in the bridge. I'd recommend checking the links in the description below for the most accurate and up-to-date pricing, but as of its release date, the map and suggested retail price for this is $229. So today we're going to have a look at the Powerball pedal from ENGL. I've said that a few times leading up to this. Powerball pedal, it's a bit of a tongue twister, or maybe I just can't speak. It's a high-gain distortion pedal based on the lead 2 channel of the actual Powerball amp. I think it has 4 channels on the actual amp, the clean, crunch, lead 1, lead 2. So this is based on the heaviest, highest gain channel from the amplifier. I've played a couple of Powerballs, but it was so long ago, I can't really remember. I remember it being not my favourite ENGL amp. I really liked it. I think for me, the Blackmore amp is my favourite. I've played a couple and I've played with some bands and they've always sounded unbelievable. I saw Last in Line a few years ago and Vivian Campbell was using one and it just made me want to go home, get rid of all my effects and just plug a Les Paul straight into a Blackmore and just be done. So normally with these videos I'll have like a bullet point checklist and I'll go through the pedal and I'll learn it. This time I thought I'd do something a little bit different, so I'm just going to I've plugged it in, I've got an overdrive in front of it and a delay behind it. I'm going into the clean channel of this amp behind me. And I just thought I would just turn it on and get my initial impressions on camera and then play around with it and see what we think. Before I do that, I want to quickly go over the specs. So, yeah, so it's on the, it's a reproduction of the lead 2 channel of the ENGL Powerball. It's got an additional DC socket out because this pedal doesn't take a battery, so you have to use a power supply for this pedal. The cool thing is that you will be able to, so for now I've got an overdrive in front of it and a delay. I can power both of those pedals from this with just one power supply, so that's pretty cool. It's got controls for volume, gain, bass, middle and treble. It's a true bypass effect. 18 milliamps power consumption, so very low, but you're not running on the battery anyway. So, and yeah, made in Germany. So, I mean, it feels very well made, and hopefully it should sound pretty good as well. So let's turn it on. I'm going through this clean amp behind me, which is the Dualist XL from RD Amplification, and this is a Pioneer P1 from LT Custom Guitars here in the UK. So this is the clean sound that we're dealing with. So I've got all the controls on the pedals set at noon, at halfway, and I'm going to turn it on and let's hear how it sounds. So first of all, where's the gain? I was expecting a lot more gain than this, to be honest. At the halfway point, it's definitely more of a rock sound at this point, and a very usable kind of rock sound as well. I'll be interested to see what happens with the EQ section when we adjust that. At the moment, it's a little bit underwhelming. I feel that it's either going to take off massively when we increase the gain, or it's going to really benefit from a boost pedal. So we'll see which way it goes. But for now, I'll play around with the EQs and the gain level and see what we get. Yeah, I like that. That's much better. It's and it seems like it's going to be a very usable sound in a mix, in a live setting as well. You know, it reminds me of a slightly pushed rectifier. It's a bit stiff, but when you get it right, it's kind of satisfying as well. It's this is difficult to put into words. Yeah, I really like that. It's a good sound. I'm going to try boosting the front end with a Boss SD1. I'm going to take the gain back slightly on the pedal. I think that we're going to get a pretty good sound. I'll do it with and without. So with the gain backed off a little bit. Yeah, it really seems to come alive when you turn the overdrive on. So anything like a Tube Screamer, SD1, that kind of thing, just boosting the front end a little bit. I haven't got any gain turned up on the overdrive pedal. It's just level all the way up, gain all the way off, and the EQ bit just, I don't know, maybe 1 o'clock. So let's try it with a bit of delay, see how that sounds. All right, so now we'll try to do something a little bit more sort of metal, so we'll see how that sounds. Probably skip the mids, because why not? Boost the gain. And then with the overdrive. So I think that when you pair it up with an overdrive pedal, there's a lot of sonic possibilities from low gain, as we saw just then, all the way up to very sort of saturated. But it never gets too. I don't think it gets too much from what I've seen so far. Even with the gain maxed out with an overdrive pushing it, yeah, it's a bit over the top, but it's nothing sort of unsuitable for those kind of styles. So I think it's a pretty cool pedal. And so far, the way I would probably use this is as a kind of higher gain rhythm kind of sound. And then you've got the overdrive to push it when you need a bit more, and then probably put some kind of EQ boost sort of thing over it after it for solos. And yeah, I'd be really happy to use that as a main sound. I might give it a go at a rehearsal or at a gig to see how it copes in a mix, because I've got a feeling it'll do pretty well. But yeah, let me know what you think down below of this pedal. Again, this is an LT Customs guitar. This is a Pioneer P1. Check them out. I'll put a link to the pedal below, so if you want to buy it. I think it's like €170, £170 or something. So it's quite an expensive pedal. It's really well made. It's versatile. It's almost like they don't let you go too far with the knobs, so you can't really get a bad sound out of it. I know today's been a bit of a weird one, a bit more of a relaxed kind of impromptu sort of style. I think it kind of simulates more of what you would get if you were to go into a guitar shop and try it out for your first time. I wanted to try and give you that kind of experience. I know normally I do the whole, maybe in a track, or I've already pre-worked out what sounds good. Because I think a lot of the time when you spend enough time with something, you can make most things sound pretty good. The Bad 94 Mini is the signature distortion pedal from everybody's favourite Filipino rock god guitar player, Perfecto de Castro. I'm not going to lie, I'm completely biased when it comes to this pedal because Perfecto is my friend, and we've actually just returned from a couple of weeks in the Philippines with Henin and everybody else that was at 42 Gear Island, or Gastaway as we like to call it. Perfecto is a 100% rock star, especially over in the Philippines. I don't think there was anywhere we went where people didn't come up and ask for his autograph. And if you've heard him play, you'll understand why. Having said all that, I do really genuinely love this pedal. The first time I heard it was through a clean amp model on my HX Stump through in-ear monitors at 42 Gear Street last year. I generally don't really like the sound of pedals through the Stump, but this sounded really great, so I knew it was something that I wanted to check out. I think it's been designed to be used in front of a completely clean amp, using this pedal to sculpt your distortion sound. So, for example, if you turn up to a gig where backline has been rented or supplied, this is the ideal pedal to turn the typical Hot Rod Deluxe combo or 900 half stack into that fire-breathing monster that you need, if that's what you need. It's definitely what I need. It comes with a few examples of suggested settings in the manual, which I'll run through later in this video. Obviously, the first thing you'll notice is, well, it's not exactly subtle, is it? I love the colour, it looks cool, it screams 80s rock, and it definitely is going to stand out on your pedal board. It has 5 controls and a foot switch. The 2 bigger controls are for level and gain, and the 3 smaller knobs are for bass, contour and treble. The contour knob controls the mids and moves between a heavily pushed mid sound all the way to a scooped thrash metal and everything in between. I think it's based on or influenced by the Marshall Shredmaster, which coincidentally has just been re-released by Marshall, although this is about $120 and the Marshall is currently $250. And it doesn't look anywhere near as cool. So I'll run through some sounds now. I'll be using it with this BLACKSTAR Amped 1, set to the clean USA voicing with the EL34 power amp valve simulation. I'll also include some delay from an MXR carbon copy and maybe push the front end a little bit for some lead sounds with a Tube Screamer Mini. For a cab, I'll be using a 212 loaded with Vintage 30 speakers, mic'd up with an SM57. So hopefully you would agree that this is a very versatile and great sounding pedal. You can cover loads of different styles of music with it, and it's very reasonably priced. I'll include links down below to where you can buy it. Today I'm going to look at this distortion pedal from Walrus Audio. It's called the RS, and Walrus Audio have the reputation of being one of the very best pedal builders out there. And considering the size of the market and the amount of competition, it's a pretty big deal. So this is how all Walrus pedals come packaged, and instantly you can tell you're dealing with serious quality, and you can tell that they really care. I've been lucky enough to try lots of really cool pedals recently, but in terms of high gain and distortion pedals, this blew me away. But before going too into depth about what I think and before I play you some sounds, let's have a quick look at the specs. The pedal has 6 controls and a foot switch to turn the pedal off and on. The top 3 controls are volume, blend and gain. Now, volume and gain are pretty self-explanatory. However, blend is a bit more of an unusual control. This control allows you to either use the pedal as your full distortion sound, or you can back off the blend and allow some of the clean or unaffected sounds through. This is a really useful feature if you're somebody who likes to stack overdrives, or as Walrus Audio themselves point out, it can work really well as a way of adding grit or distortion to a bass guitar signal, adding dirt without losing low end. The bottom 3 controls are bass, mode and treble. Again, bass and treble being obvious, adding or subtracting high and low frequencies. The mode control is a 5-way rotary control that switches between different voicings and gain stages. You can almost think of it as 5 different distortion pedals in one, or as Walrus Audio like to put it, think of it as each position being a different flavour of the pedal. So these 5 modes, we start with the first mode, which is the tight mode with a slight mid-cut LED hard clipping. They say it's the fastest response, great for palm muting. Number 2 is another tight mode with a slight mid-cut and silicon hard clipping this time. Walrus Audio say it's smooth with added compression. Number 3 is the dual clipping mode with a slight mid-cut with both silicon and LED hard clipping. Walrus Audio say it's rich and full with added sustain. Number 4, I've noticed that there's a bit of a volume drop in this mode, and they say it's the rhythm mode with a deeper mid-cut, LED hard clipping, scooped mids and a tight response. And number 5 again is lower in volume and another rhythm mode with a deeper mid-cut and silicon hard clipping. Walrus Audio say rhythmic, warm and full. The manual tells us that this pedal covers all eras of high gain, from classic rock sounds to modern metal. So let's check out some sounds with this pedal. For this demo, I'll be using the RS into the BLACKSTAR Amped 1 on the US clean voicing with the EL34 power amp simulation, and I'll be running through a 212 with vintage 30s and an SM57 microphone. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to keep the blend control on full, as I won't be stacking overdrives or playing bass, so it should hopefully give the most obvious difference in sounds between the 5 different modes by keeping the blend on full. So, is this the best distortion pedal ever? I don't know, but it's definitely one of my favourite high gain pedals that I've ever tried. It's way up there. It's around £200, so for that price, you'd expect it to be good, and it definitely delivers. With the versatility of this pedal, you'll probably be able to tweak it to fit your needs in any high gain situation. So this is the RECTO, or possibly RECTO distortion pedal from NUX. The website says it's a pedal from their reissue series, a heavy distortion sound with tight bass response. It utilises a pure analog circuit to simulate that typical famous American high gain preamp tone from the 90s. I've spent many years with rectifiers and have a weird love-hate relationship with them, so I'm curious to see how close they get with this pedal. The phrase tight bass response seems interesting because I've always found rectifiers to have some of the loosest low ends out of any amplifier. It's why vintage 30s and tube screamers go so well with them. Also, the fact that it advertises that it uses bass and high passive EQ. Rectifiers use an active EQ band, which is why the controls react with each other in such a different way when compared to, say, a Marshall. It can actually be quite frustrating until you kind of get used to it. I mean, maybe that's what they're saying, or maybe that's what they're trying to say, that it's a more simple EQ. Or maybe I'm just reading way too much into that one statement, but either way, it's just boring rectifier connoisseur stuff. And all that matters really is how it sounds. It's true bypass, and it has a tiny 20 milliamp current draw. So if you're running your effects from a power bank or the internal 9-volt battery, it's going to last a very long time. I think it looks really cool. They've really nailed the aesthetic. It feels solid and roadworthy. So the pedal's got 4 controls and a foot switch. The top 2 controls are the bass and treble controls, as we've already spoke about. The bottom 2 are gain, so your level of distortion, and a master volume. A very simple, well laid out pedal, unlikely to give you any option paralysis. So I'll demo the pedal using this BLACKSTAR Amped 1 on the USA cleaner setting, and I'll use the 6L6 power section, as that's what usually comes standard with a rectifier. So I'll treat it as I would a real amp, and I'll include a tube screamer before it, which I'll show both on and off. Lastly, I'll be getting a little bit of delay occasionally from an MXR carbon copy. The signal's being sent to a 212 with vintage 30s, mic'd up with an SM57. So let me know down below what you thought of the sounds. The rectifier is a notoriously difficult sound to reproduce and capture. How close do you think they got? This is the BLACKSTAR Department 10 dual distortion pedal. It's not a new release, it's been out for about 18 months or so. It's a good looking, well built pedal with some very useful and important features that I find even more technically advanced units are lacking. I'll go into that a bit more when I talk about the specs. Over the past 2 years, BLACKSTAR have really upped their game. It would have been so easy for them to just rest on the success of their Series 1 and HT range of amps and occasionally repackage them like some other big UK brands might have done. But they continue to develop and push forward. The Silverline, Amped and St James series are perfect examples of this forward thinking. The Department 10 dual distortion pedal is a 2-channel high-gain amp in a box. So you can choose from a clean or crunchy amp sound for channel 1 and 2 different flavours of overdrive tone for channel 2. They have a shared 3-band EQ and individual volume and gain controls. They also share BLACKSTAR's famous ISF control. If you're not aware of the ISF feature, it's a BLACKSTAR patented control which stands for Infinite Shape Feature, and what it does is it kind of moves around the mid-range, which in turn gives it a more British sound on one side of the control and more of a typical American sound all the way at the other end of the control, and then you can kind of tweak it to taste. The first and most obvious difference between this and most other pedals is the valve. This comes with a single ECC 83 preamp tube protected by this guard. I think that years ago, if you'd seen something like this, you might imagine it to be a gimmick, as it seems many things were back then. And I can't tell you for sure how much it's doing, but what I do know is it sounds very good, but more importantly, it feels more natural and responds more like a real amp than, say, my Helix or other similar pedals. It comes with an effects loop, and you might be wondering, what's the point in that? Just place your modulation and time-based effects after the pedal. The problem is that if you're using the simulated cab output, as I would definitely recommend you do in a live situation, then you won't hear anything that's after the pedal. So put them in a loop and then everything will be sent to the various outputs. And the outputs on this thing are actually some of my favourite features. It has an output without any cab simulation, so you can send that to the front of your amp or power amp and have a great in-the-room sound. And then also at the same time, you can send the version with the cab simulation directly to your mixer or front of house and not have to worry about bad mic placement or mic bleeds. Unlike the HX Stomp and many other similarly sized units, they've actually included an XLR output as well. So no need for DI boxes or TRS to XLR converters. Just ask the sound engineer for an XLR and you'll be good to go. The Department 10 can also be used as an audio interface, so just plug it straight into your Mac or PC via the USB output and you'll be recording music in no time. You can also download their cab modelling software called Architect, and this will allow you to build and sculpt your own direct cab sounds by tweaking parameters like power amp settings, microphone placement, and changing out speakers and cabs. So let's hear it. I'll be plugging this into this BLACKSTAR Amped 1, which is a 100 watt amplifier on the clean USA voicing. That's being sent to a 212 cab with vintage 30s, mic'd up with an SM57. did you think of the sounds? I think these kind of pedals are really refreshing and help remove the option paralysis while being able to integrate into your rig no matter how complex or simple it is.